The Vermont air hit me the moment I stepped out of my Honda Sharp Clean and Expensive. The kind of air that doesn't exist in Boston, where I'd left 3 hours ago with a travel mug of cold coffee and my mother's text message still glowing on my phone. Please, Emma, no drama today. It's Sophia's day. As if I'd ever caused drama. As if I'd ever caused anything. The lakeside resort rose before me like something out of a European postcard, all stone facades and ivy-covered walls. Through the tall windows I could see crystal chandeliers already lit even though it was only 2 in the afternoon. October in Vermont meant early darkness, and my sister Sophia had planned for golden hour photos by the lake sunset ceremony and a reception that would sparkle into the night. She'd planned everything perfectly. She always did. I smoothed down my dress, a deep burgundy wrap dress I'd bought on sale 3 months ago when the invitation arrived. The color reminded me of wine, of something rich people drank without looking at the price tag. I'd practiced walking in these heels in my apartment back and forth across the hardwood floors, while my neighbor probably wondered what the hell I was doing at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. The gift sat in my passenger seat, wrapped in silver paper that caught the afternoon light. I'd spent 4 hours on it last weekend. Not the wrapping, the contents. A handmade photo album, each page carefully curated with pictures from our childhood. Sophia and me at the beach, our hair wet and tangled. Sophia and me at Halloween dressed as a princess and a witch, guess which one I was. Sophia and me on Christmas morning, surrounded by a sea of wrapping paper that always seemed to pile higher on her side of the room. I'd written captions in my neatest handwriting, Sisters Forever, my best friend, the one who knows me best. Lies, maybe, but the kind of lies you tell at weddings. Tucked into the bottom of the box, invisible, unless you lifted out the album, was a small USB drive. I'd wrapped it in tissue paper and secured it with a piece of tape. Insurance, I'd told myself when I'd placed it there at 2 a.m. last night, my hands shaking slightly. Just insurance. I grabbed the gift and my small clutch locked the car and walked toward the entrance. My heels clicked on the stone pathway, a sound I wasn't used to. I was a data analyst. I wore flats to work and sneakers on weekends. This version of me dressed up and holding a perfect gift felt like a costume. The lobby smelled like lilies and money. A massive arrangement sat on a round table in the center, white blooms, so perfect they almost looked fake. A woman in a sleek black suit approached me, clipboard in hand, smile professionally warm. "Welcome. Are you with the Hayes Cooper wedding?" "Yes, I'm Emma Hayes, Sophia's sister." Something flickered across her face so quick I almost missed it. She glanced down at her clipboard, her perfectly manicured finger running down a list of names. "Ah, yes, Miss Hayes, Emma." She looked up and the smile had shifted. Still polite, but different. Careful. "If you'll follow me, I'll show you to your seat." I followed her through the lobby past a sign that read Hayes Cooper Wedding in elegant gold script with an arrow pointing toward the crystal ballroom. But we didn't go toward the ballroom. We turned down a side corridor past the restrooms, past a door marked Staff Only. "I think there might be a mistake," I said, my voice calm, even though my heart had started to beat faster. "Isn't the ceremony in the ballroom? The ceremony is in the garden terrace, and the reception is in the ballroom," she said, not slowing down. "Your seat is just here." We stopped in a hallway. Not a pretty hallway with artwork and soft lighting. A service hallway with concrete floors and fluorescent lights. Against the wall sat a small folding table, the kind you'd see at a garage sale with a single folding chair. Through a set of glass doors I could see into the ballroom. The real ballroom where round tables dressed in cream linens were topped with towering centerpieces of orchids and roses. Where chandeliers sparkled like captured stars. Where my family would sit and eat and dance and celebrate. I stood in the hallway that smelled faintly of industrial cleaner, and something else. The garbage bins were just around the corner. I could see the black edge of one from where I stood. "This is my seat," I said. Not a question. A statement. The coordinator's smile had gone brittle. "I just follow the seating chart, ma'am. If you have questions, you can speak with the mother of the bride." Mother of the bride. Not your mother, as if she could sense the distance between us through some wedding planner intuition. "It's fine," I heard myself say. "Thank you." She hesitated, perhaps expecting an argument, a scene, but I'd learned long ago that making noise only made things worse. I sat down in the folding chair, placed my gift on the table, and folded my hands in my lap. She left her heels clicking away down the corridor until the sound faded completely. I sat alone in the hallway and looked through the glass into the ballroom. From here, I could see everything. The guests arriving in their cocktail dresses and suits. The photographer directing people into poses. My mother in champagne silk adjusting her pearls. My father in a navy suit that looked new, probably bought for this occasion. And Sophia. Even from here, even through glass and distance, she glowed. Her white dress fitted perfectly, probably altered 5 times to achieve that exact silhouette. Her dark hair was swept up in some complicated style that had probably required a 3-hour salon appointment. She threw her head back laughing at something someone said, and even though I couldn't hear it, I knew that laugh. The one she'd perfected in high school, the one that made people lean in closer, want to be part of the joke. No one looked toward the hallway. No one noticed the glass doors, the folding table, the woman in burgundy sitting alone. I'd been invisible my whole life. Why should today be different? But something was different. Sitting there in that hallway, I felt at a strange clarity, like the moment right before a thunderstorm when the air goes still and electric. I wasn't angry. I'd been angry before, and this wasn't that. This was something cleaner, something that felt almost like relief. They'd finally shown me the truth I'd always known but never wanted to face. I didn't count. In the mathematics of this family, I'd never been part of the equation, and maybe that was okay. Maybe that meant I was finally free to solve a different kind of problem. I reached into my clutch and pulled out my phone. One new message from Jessica Chen, my best friend since college, maybe my only real friend. How's it going? Are you surviving the family circus? I typed back. Define surviving. 3 dots appeared immediately. Jessica was supposed to be working on a freelance article today, but she'd probably been checking her phone every 10 minutes waiting to hear from me. That bad? Want me to drive up there? I can be there in 4 hours with wine and bail money. Despite everything, I smiled. Jessica had offered to come with me to the wedding. I'd said no. This was something I needed to do alone. I'm okay, I typed. Actually, I'm better than okay. I'm seeing things clearly for the first time. That sounds either very zen or very concerning. Maybe both. I sent back then, added, I'll call you later. I promise. I put my phone away and looked at the gift on the table. The silver paper gleamed under the fluorescent lights. Inside was the album I'd made hours of work selecting photos and writing captions. And beneath it, the USB drive. 2 weeks ago, I'd been at Whole Foods reaching for organic apples when I'd heard her voice. Sophia's voice, bright and animated, coming from the next aisle over. I'd almost called out to her, almost walked around to say hello. We didn't see each other often. She was busy with wedding planning. I was busy with work, but I was trying. I was always trying. Then I'd heard what she was saying. Daniel's so sweet, it's almost boring. Like he actually believes I want to live in Vermont and have Sunday dinners with his mother. She'd laughed that same laugh I'd just seen through the glass. But the trust fund access comes through 6 months after the wedding, and the prenup his mother made him sign has a clause if we make it 2 years, I get to keep the house even if we divorce. 2 years. I can do anything for 2 years. I'd stood frozen, an apple in my hand, listening. He thinks I'm this small-town girl who got lucky. His mom definitely thinks that. But once we're married, once my name is on the accounts, I'll have options. Real options. Not like now, drowning in credit card debt and begging Emma for loans I'll never pay back. The friend she was talking to, I never saw who it was, had said something I couldn't hear. Emma, God, no. She'll probably give some boring gift like a picture frame and spend the whole wedding judging everyone. She's so uptight. Always has been. Mom says Emma never needed attention, but the truth is, no one wanted to give it to her. There's a difference. I'd left my cart in the middle of the aisle and walked out of the store. That night I'd sat in my apartment and cried for the first time in years. Not because I was surprised. I'd known on some level that Sophia saw me this way, but hearing it said out loud so casually, like it was simply a fact of nature. The next day I'd called in sick to work and spent 8 hours researching. Vermont recording laws. Defamation statutes. What constituted fraud in marriage? Then I'd bought a voice-activated recorder, the kind that looked like a pen. I'd carried it everywhere for 2 weeks, waiting. 3 days ago, I'd gotten my chance. Sophia had called me asking to meet for coffee to discuss the wedding. I'd met her at a cafe in Cambridge, the recorder in my jacket pocket. She'd asked me to be in charge of the guest book. It's an important job, she'd said, touching my hand across the table. I need someone responsible. Someone she could stick in a hallway. I understood now. But during that coffee, her phone had rung. Oh, it's Melissa. I have to take this wedding dress emergency. She'd stepped outside, and I'd watched through the window as she'd paced, talking animatedly. When she came back in, she'd been distracted already thinking about whatever crisis had arisen. She'd started talking, and I'd listened the recorder, catching every word. Daniel's mother hates me, but that's fine. Rich mothers-in-law always hate the bride at first. I just have to play nice until the papers are signed. His dad's trust fund, Daniel, gets full access after he's married. Did you know that? It's in the family trust documents. His mom can't touch it once we're married. 6 months and I'll have access to the accounts too. Joint finances, baby. She'd laughed, sipping her latte. The best part, Daniel's so traditional. He wants to build a life together, wants me to help him pick out furniture and plan vacations. It's adorable, really. He has no idea that I've already planned my exit strategy. 2 years, get my name on the house, build up my own credit using his money, then I'll decide if I want to stay or cash out. What about Emma? I'd asked, my voice steady. Did you invite her to the wedding? Of course, Mom insisted, but I put her at a table in the back. Actually, she'd grinned. I told the coordinator to put her in the hallway. I know that sounds mean, but Emma won't care. She never cares about anything. She'll probably leave early anyway. She always does. I'd finished my coffee, hugged my sister goodbye, and gone home to transfer the audio file to a USB drive. Now, sitting in that hallway, I pulled the gift closer and carefully peeled back one corner of the silver wrapping paper. The tape came loose easily. I'd planned for this, used the removable kind. I lifted the lid of the box and took out the photo album, setting it on the table. The USB drive was there, wrapped in white tissue paper. I held it in my palm. It was so small, this thing that held the truth. This thing that could destroy my sister's perfect day. I could walk away right now. Get in my car, drive back to Boston, let Sophia marry Daniel, and play out whatever future she'd planned. It wasn't my business. It wasn't my life. But Daniel's face appeared in my mind. I'd met him twice at family dinners Sophia had arranged. He'd been kind, genuine. The kind of man who asked questions and actually listened to the answers. The kind of man who'd told me about his father's death 2 years ago, how it had changed him, made him want to build something meaningful with his life. The kind of man who deserved the truth. I rewrapped the USB drive and placed it back in the box, but this time I positioned it differently. Before, it had been hidden at the bottom. Now I tucked it partially under the album, visible if someone lifted the album out. Not hidden, available. I closed the box and repaired the wrapping paper, smoothing it down until you couldn't tell it had been opened. Then I stood up, picked up the box, and walked down the hallway toward the ballroom entrance, where gifts were being collected on a long table draped in white satin. A young woman, probably one of the bridesmaids, was arranging the presents, organizing them by size. I have a gift for the bride and groom, I said. She smiled. Of course, just set it anywhere. I placed my silver box right on top of the pile in the center where it couldn't be missed, where it would probably be one of the first ones opened. My handwriting on the tag was neat. Careful, to Sophia and Daniel. May your marriage be built on truth. Love, Emma. That's a beautiful wrapping job, the bridesmaid said. Thank you. I spent a lot of time on it. I walked back to my folding chair in the hallway, sat down, and waited. The hallway was quiet, except for the occasional server pushing a cart past, headed toward the kitchen. Through the glass, I watched the ballroom fill with guests. I recognized some of them, cousins I hadn't seen in years, my mother's friends from her book club, my father's former colleagues. People who'd known me my whole life and probably couldn't pick me out of a lineup. I checked my phone. 40 minutes until the ceremony started. 40 minutes of sitting here watching through glass like a child with her nose pressed against a bakery window. My mind drifted back the way it always did when I was alone. Back to the moments that had built this distance between me and my family, brick by invisible brick. The piano recital. Age 10. I'd started piano lessons when I was 8 at my own request. We'd had an old upright in the living room, my grandmother's gathering dust. I'd taught myself chopsticks and begged my mother for real lessons. If you stick with it, she'd said, I'm not wasting money on another one of your phases. I'd stuck with it. 2 years of practice, 30 minutes every day after school, while Sophia watched TV in the next room. My teacher, Mrs. Chen, no relation to my friend Jessica, had been impressed with my progress. She has discipline, she told my mother. That's rarer than talent. When I was 10, Mrs. Chen entered me in a student recital, my first performance. I'd practiced my piece, a simplified version of Clair de Lune, until my fingers moved across the keys in my sleep. The recital was on a Sunday afternoon in May. I'd worn a blue dress my mother had bought me, and she'd even curled my hair that morning, the two of us standing in the bathroom while she worked the curling iron carefully. "You look so pretty," she'd said, and I'd glowed. Sophia, 8 years old then, had been supposed to come too. The whole family was supposed to come. But that morning, Sophia had woken up with a stomach ache. She'd clutched her middle and moaned, and my mother had taken her temperature normal and felt her forehead cool, but Sophia had looked up with those big eyes and whispered, "Mommy, it really hurts." I'd stood in the doorway of her room, already dressed, hair curled, and watched my mother sit on Sophia's bed. "Maybe it's something she ate," my father had said. "Maybe we should stay home," my mother had said, "just to be safe." "I can take Emma," my father had offered. But Sophia had started crying then. "I want Daddy to stay too. Please, I'm scared." And just like that, it was decided. "Emma, honey, you understand, don't you?" My mother had looked at me with pleading eyes. "We can't leave your sister when she's not feeling well." "Mrs. Chen will be there," my father had added. "And think of it this way, you won't be nervous with us in the audience." I'd nodded. Of course I understood. Sophia was sick. Family came first. Mrs. Chen had picked me up, had sat in the front row and smiled encouragingly. I'd played my piece perfectly, not a single mistake. Afterward, she'd hugged me and told me how proud she was. I'd come home to find Sophia eating ice cream in front of the TV, fully recovered. "How was it?" my mother had asked, distracted folding laundry. "Good," I'd said. "That's wonderful, honey." No one asked me to play it for them. The moment passed, dissolved into the routine of dinner and bedtime and the next day's obligations. Years later, I'd realized that Sophia hadn't been sick. She'd been 8 years old and smart enough to know that if I got too much attention, there wouldn't be enough left for her. The college years, I'd gotten into MIT on a full academic scholarship, a miracle my guidance counselor had called it. "Do you know how rare this is?" she'd said, gripping my hands across her desk. I'd known. I'd worked for it. 4 years of straight A's, AP classes, math competitions, science fairs. 4 years of being the girl in the library on Friday nights while everyone else was at parties. When the acceptance letter came thick and promising, I'd run into the kitchen where my mother was making dinner. "I got in," I'd said breathless. "MIT full scholarship." "That's wonderful, Emma." She'd hugged me, spatula still in hand. "Your father will be so proud." And he had been. He'd smiled and nodded and said, "I always knew you were smart, kiddo." We'd gone out to dinner Olive Garden, where we went for special occasions. Sophia had been a sophomore in high school then, and she'd been quiet through dinner, pushing breadsticks around her plate. "What's wrong, honey?" my mother had asked her. "Nothing," Sophia had said. "I'm happy for Emma, really." But her eyes had been red, and later I'd heard her crying in her room. 2 years later, Sophia had applied to colleges. She'd wanted Parsons School of Design in New York, her dream school. She'd been drawing and painting since she was little, had a real talent for it. She didn't get in. Her grades weren't good enough, despite the portfolio she'd spent months perfecting. She'd sobbed at the dinner table, and my mother had held her while my father made phone calls. Within a week, they'd found a private art school in Boston, not as prestigious, but good. The tuition was $40,000 a year. "We'll make it work," my father had said. And they had. My father had taken on consulting work after his retirement. My mother had started tutoring in the evenings. They'd done whatever it took to send Sophia to her school. Meanwhile, at MIT, I'd worked 3 jobs: library assistant, research assistant, weekend barista, to cover my living expenses that the scholarship didn't include. I'd eaten ramen and slept 4 hours a night and told myself I was lucky. I had a full ride. I had no right to complain. Sophomore year, I'd asked my parents if they could help me buy a laptop. Mine had died, and I needed it for my programming classes. "How much?" my father had asked. $800. I found a refurbished one. He'd sighed. "Emma, we're stretched thin with Sophia's tuition. Can you put it on a credit card? Pay it off slowly." I'd opened my first credit card that week. I was 19 years old. The journal. 3 years ago, I'd come home for Thanksgiving. Sophia had been in Portugal with her boyfriend of the month, so it was just me and our parents. It should have been nice, intimate, a chance to reconnect. But the house had felt empty without Sophia's energy filling it. My mother had overcooked the turkey. My father had fallen asleep watching football. I'd helped clean up dinner, and my mother had sent me upstairs to get her reading glasses from her bedroom. I'd found them on her vanity next to a small brown leather journal. I shouldn't have opened it. I knew that even as my fingers touched the cover. But the house was quiet, and I was curious, and I told myself I'd just peek at one page. Every entry started the same way Sophia's first day of kindergarten. She cried and didn't want me to leave. My heart broke. Sophia's favorite meal, mac and cheese with cut-up hot dogs. She calls them little treasures. Sophia made the JV cheerleading squad. She's been practicing her jumps in the backyard for weeks. So proud. Sophia got into that art school in Boston. It's expensive, but she's so talented. We'll find a way. I'd flipped through 20 pages, 30, 50. Not one mention of my name, not my first day of school, not my piano recital, not my MIT acceptance, not my graduation where I'd been top of my class. Nothing. I'd found one entry near the back dated from 2 years ago. Had coffee with Linda today. She asked how both girls are doing. I told her about Sophia's new apartment in Boston, how she's loving her classes. Linda asked about Emma, and I realized I don't know what to say about her. She's fine, I guess. She's always fine. She doesn't need me the way Sophia does. I suppose that's a good thing. One less thing to worry about. I'd closed the journal carefully and put it back exactly where I'd found it. I'd brought my mother, her glasses watched her smile and say thank you, and felt something crack inside my chest. That night at dinner, I'd asked, "Mom, do you remember my piano recital when I was 10? She'd paused fork halfway to her mouth. "Your piano recital? The one where you stayed home with Sophia?" "Oh, honey, that was so long ago." She'd smiled. "You did fine, though, didn't you? You always did fine." Fine. The word I'd heard my whole life. Emma's fine. She doesn't need help. She doesn't need attention. She's independent. She's strong. She's fine, fine, fine. I'd left the next morning claiming I had to work on Monday. Really, I just couldn't stay in that house anymore, surrounded by pictures of Sophia on every wall, and none of me. Surrounded by a family who'd convinced themselves that neglect was the same as fostering independence. The sound of laughter pulled me back to the present. Through the glass, I saw my mother and Sophia posing for photos, their heads close together, both laughing at something the photographer had said. My phone buzzed. A text from my father. "Where are you? Ceremony starts in 20 minutes. I typed back in my assigned seat. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally, "We should talk after the ceremony." "Sure," I sent back. We wouldn't talk. We never really talked. We had conversations around the edges of things, carefully avoiding anything real. But maybe after today, that would change. Maybe after today, everything would change. I looked at the ballroom one more time at my family laughing and posing and celebrating. Then I looked down at my hands folded calmly in my lap. I wasn't the piano-playing 10-year-old anymore waiting for someone to ask me to perform. I wasn't the MIT student working 3 jobs and telling myself I was lucky. I wasn't the woman who'd found that journal and swallowed her hurt like medicine. I was Emma Catherine Hayes, 28 years old, and I'd finally learned that being invisible wasn't the same as being powerless. Sometimes the quietest person in the room was the one who saw everything, and sometimes seeing everything was the most dangerous thing of all. The ceremony started at exactly 4 o'clock, just as the October sun began its descent toward the lake. I heard it more than saw it, the string quartet playing Pachelbel's canon, the rustle of guests standing the collective intake of breath when Sophia appeared. From my folding chair in the hallway, I had a slanted view through the glass doors. If I leaned forward just right, I could see the makeshift aisle they'd created on the garden terrace, lined with white roses and candles in hurricane glasses. The lake shimmered beyond dark blue and endless. Sophia walked down the aisle on my father's arm, and even I had to admit she was beautiful. The dress caught the fading light, and her smile was perfect, not too big, not too practiced, just right. She'd probably rehearsed it in the mirror 100 times. My father's face, though, that's what caught my attention. He looked proud, yes, but also sad. His jaw was tight, and his eyes were distant focused somewhere past the ceremony, past the celebration. I'd seen that look before, usually late at night, when he sat in his study going through bills or staring at his computer screen. Daniel waited at the altar in a gray suit, his hands clasped in front of him. From this distance, I couldn't see his expression clearly, but his posture was rigid. Nervous, I assumed. Most grooms were nervous. But something about the set of his shoulders reminded me of a man bracing for impact. The ceremony was short, 15 minutes of traditional vows, a reading from Corinthians about love being patient and kind. I wondered if Sophia heard the irony. The officiant pronounced them husband and wife. Daniel kissed her, and the guests erupted in applause. Through the glass, I watched them walk back down the aisle together, Sophia's hand tucked into Daniel's elbow, her face glowing with triumph. Not happiness. Triumph. I knew the difference. Chin. The cocktail hour was held in the garden terrace while the ballroom was prepared for dinner. I stayed in my hallway watching servers circulate with trays of champagne and canapes. Guests clustered in groups, laughing and drinking their voices, carrying through the glass in a pleasant murmur. My mother floated through the crowd in her champagne silk, accepting congratulations, her pearls catching the light. My father stood with a group of his old colleagues, scotch in hand, nodding at whatever they were saying, but not really listening. And Sophia held court in the center of it all, Daniel beside her, the two of them posing for photos with various relatives and friends. She'd changed her bouquet the ceremony. One had been white roses, but now she held a smaller arrangement of orchids. Even her flowers had costume changes. I was about to check my phone when the glass door beside me opened. Sophia stood there backlit by the golden cocktail hour light, her dress rustling as she stepped into the hallway. She closed the door behind her, muting the party sounds. "There you are," she said. "I've been looking for you." "Here I am," I gestured at my folding chair. "Right where you put me." She had the grace to look uncomfortable for half a second. Then she recovered, lifting her chin. The coordinator made a mistake with the seating chart. There was some confusion. "Sophia," I kept my voice level. "You told her to put me in the hallway. I know you did." Her eyes narrowed. "Have you been talking to the staff god, Emma? That's so embarrassing." "What's embarrassing is seating your sister next to the trash bins." "It's not next to the trash bins. It's near the service area. And anyway," she smoothed her dress, a gesture I recognized from childhood. She did it when she was about to say something cruel and wanted to look innocent while doing it. "It's my wedding. I can seat people wherever I want." "You're right. It is your wedding." I stood up, meeting her eyes. We were the same height in our heels. "So why did you come out here to check if I'd left yet?" "I came to see if you were okay." But her tone said she didn't actually care about the answer. "I'm fine, Sophia. I'm always fine. That's what everyone always says about me, right?" Something flickered across her face. Surprise, maybe, that I was pushing back. I never pushed back. That was our dynamic. She pushed. I absorbed. "You know what?" Her voice sharpened. "I thought you might actually be happy for me today. Just once. Just for one day. Could you not make everything about you?" The laugh that came out of me was short and bitter. "Make everything about me, Sophia. I'm sitting in a hallway. I'm literally as far from the center of attention as it's possible to be. And yet here we are talking about your feelings instead of me enjoying my cocktail hour." She crossed her arms. "This is exactly what you do. You sit in the corner and radiate disappointment until someone comes to check on you. It's manipulative." I stared at her. "You actually believe that?" "I know that. Mom says it too. You make people feel guilty just by existing." "And what do you do, Sophia?" The words came out quieter than I intended, but they landed hard. I could see them hit. "What do you make people feel?" Her jaw tightened. "You want to know what I think? I think you're jealous. You've always been jealous." "Of what, Of this." She gestured at herself at the dress at the closed door behind her where her wedding reception waited. "Of me having something good. Of me being happy." "Are you happy?" I asked. "Really?" For just a moment, less than a second, her mask slipped. I saw fear in her eyes, sharp and real. Then she blinked and it was gone. "Happier than you'll ever be," she said. "Because I take what I want. I don't sit around waiting for someone to give me permission to live my life." "Is that what you think I do?" "Isn't it?" She tilted her head, studying me like I was a problem she was solving. "You're almost 30, Emma. You live alone in a boring apartment, working a boring job with no boyfriend, no real friends." "I have friends." "Name one person who would drop everything to be here with you right now." Jessica's face flashed in my mind, but I didn't say her name. I wouldn't give Sophia that. "That's what I thought." Sophia's smile was sharp. "You know what your problem is? You think being smart makes you better than everyone else. But intelligence without happiness is just sad. And you're the saddest person I know." The words were designed to hurt, and they did. but not in the way she intended. They hurt because I could hear my mother's voice in them, her phrasing. These weren't Sophia's original thoughts. They were lines she'd been fed probably over years of conversations I wasn't present for. Emma's so smart, but so lonely. Emma's so capable, but so cold. Emma doesn't need us, but isn't that sad? They'd built a story about me and Sophia had memorized it. I'm not sad, I said quietly. I'm just done. Done with what? With this. With pretending we're sisters when we're really just strangers who share DNA. Her expression hardened. Fine. Great. Then you can leave. No one's forcing you to stay. You're right. No one is. I looked at her, really looked at her, maybe for the last time. I hope your marriage is everything you planned for. The emphasis on planned made her eyes flash. What's that supposed to mean? It means exactly what you think it means. For a moment we stood there in the service hallway, sisters and strangers, with everything and nothing left to say. Then Sophia turned on her heel, her dress swishing dramatically, and walked back toward her wedding. The door closed behind her with a soft click. I sat back down in my folding chair and pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking not from anger, from adrenaline, from the strange sensation of finally speaking truth out loud. A text from Jessica's status report, I typed. I just had the most honest conversation I've ever had with my sister. Good honest or bad honest? The kind where you realize you've been speaking different languages your whole life. Damn. You okay? I looked through the glass at the party. The ballroom doors were opening now, guests filing in for dinner. My mother was arranging people at tables, directing traffic with the smooth competence of a woman who'd organized countless events. My father had disappeared, probably to the bar, and Sophia stood in the center of the ballroom, radiant and perfect, surrounded by people who loved the version of her she'd created. I'm okay, I texted back. Actually, I think I'm better than okay. That sounds ominous. Maybe a little. Should I be worried? I thought about the silver box on the gift table, about the USB drive tucked inside, about the choice I'd made to place it there instead of throwing it away. Only if you're my sister, I sent. LOL. Call me later. I want details. I will. Promise. Dinner service began at 6. Through the glass, I watched servers emerge from the kitchen carrying plates of salad, then entrees, chicken or fish, the eternal wedding dilemma. The tables sparkled with candlelight and crystal. Someone clinked a glass and the room fell silent for the first toast. My father stood microphone in hand. Even from the hallway, I could see his hands trembling slightly. I'm not good at speeches, he began, and the crowd laughed kindly. But I'm going to try. Sophia has been a light in our lives since the day she was born. She's brought us joy and laughter, and... He paused, and I saw him swallow hard. And she's taught us what it means to love unconditionally. I wondered if he heard the irony, if he thought about me at all sitting in a hallway while he talked about unconditional love. Daniel, my father continued, you're getting a wonderful woman. She's going to challenge you and surprise you and keep you on your toes. Take care of her. She's precious to us. Applause. My father sat down and my mother reached over to squeeze his hand. Sophia dabbed at her eyes with a napkin, careful not to smudge her makeup. Next came Daniel's best man, a tall guy named Marcus, who told stories about college pranks and bad decisions. The crowd laughed. Sophia beamed. Then Catherine Cooper stood. Daniel's mother was in her late 50s with steel gray hair cut in a sharp bob and a navy dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She held the microphone like she was born to it, her posture perfect. I'm not going to tell embarrassing stories, she said, and her voice was warm but firm. Instead, I want to talk about truth. The room shifted. I couldn't see faces clearly, but I could feel the change in energy. When Daniel's father passed away 2 years ago, he made me promise something. He made me promise to always tell Daniel the truth, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. Catherine looked at Daniel, and even from the hallway I could see the love in her eyes. So Daniel hears a truth marriage is only as strong as the foundation it's built on, and that foundation has to be honesty. She turned to look at Sophia. Sophia, you're joining our family today, and I want you to know that in our family we value truth above everything else. Above comfort, above convenience, above appearances. The room had gone very quiet. So I'm going to give you both the same advice my husband gave me on our wedding day. Never lie to each other. Not about the big things, not about the small things, because once you start, you can't stop. And lies have a way of coming to light eventually, usually when you least expect them. Catherine sat down. The applause was polite but confused. Sophia's smile had frozen on her face. Daniel looked pale. My mother whispered something to my father, who shook his head. And I leaned forward in my chair, my heart beating faster. The servers began clearing dinner plates. In the corner, the DJ was setting up for dancing. Someone from the catering staff walked past me, carrying a stack of dessert plates heading toward the kitchen. Then I saw the wedding coordinator approach the gift table. Everything slowed down. She spoke to one of the bridesmaids, the same one who'd helped me place my gift. The bridesmaid nodded and began gathering presents, placing them on a rolling cart. They were going to do a gift display, I realized. The coordinator had mentioned it in the wedding program I'd found discarded on a chair. Join us as the happy couple opens a few selected presents. Not all the presents, just a few, for show. My silver box was on top of the pile. The cart rolled toward the center of the ballroom, where a small table had been set up. Sophia and Daniel were directed to sit the photographer positioning herself for the perfect shot. I stood up. My legs felt distant, like they belonged to someone else. Through the glass, I watched Sophia reach for the first present, a large box wrapped in white paper with a gold bow. She opened it, pulled out a KitchenAid mixer, and held it up for the crowd to see. Applause. Laughter. Someone yelled, "Now you have to learn to cook." Next, a smaller box. Crystal wine glasses. More applause. Then my gift. Sophia picked up the silver box and I saw her read the tag. Her eyes scanned the crowd looking for me, probably. But I was outside invisible, and she turned back to the present. "This one's from my sister," she announced, and her voice carried that carefully calibrated mix of affection and condescension. "Emma's very thoughtful." She pulled the ribbon free. The paper fell away. She lifted the lid. The photo album was on top. She pulled it out, and even from here I could see the surprise on her face. This wasn't what she'd expected. Not from me. "Oh," she said, opening it to the first page. "It's a photo album of us as kids." She held it up for the crowd to see. There were appreciative murmurs. "How sweet," someone said. Sophia flipped through a few pages, her expression softening despite herself. Maybe she was remembering those moments, those beach days and Christmases. Maybe for just a second she was seeing what we could have been. Then she reached the end of the album and went to close the box. That's when she saw it. The USB drive, small and black, sitting in the white tissue paper. She picked it up, frowning. "There's a flash drive." Daniel leaned over. "What's on it?" "I don't know." Sophia looked confused, now the performance slipping. "There's no label." "Maybe it's photos," the bridesmaid suggested. Like digital copies of the album, the wedding coordinator materialized with a laptop, probably the same one they'd been using for the slideshow during cocktail hour. "We can check quickly," she said, plugging in the USB drive. I pressed my palm against the glass door. This was it. The moment everything changed. The laptop screen came to life. A single file appeared. Audio recording OakTT24.mp3. The coordinator clicked it before anyone could stop her. Sophia's voice filled the ballroom through the laptop speakers, loud and clear. "Daniel's so sweet it's almost boring. Like he actually believes I want to live in Vermont and have Sunday dinners with his mother." The laughter in the recording was unmistakable. Sophia's laughter. Every head in the ballroom turned to look at her. Sophia lunged for the laptop. "Turn it off." But the coordinator had stepped back confused and the recording kept playing. "But the trust fund access comes through 6 months after the wedding, and the prenup his mother made him sign has a clause if we make it 2 years, I get to keep the house even if we divorce. 2 years. I can do anything for 2 years. Daniel stood up. His face had gone completely white. "He thinks I'm this small-town girl who got lucky. His mom definitely thinks that. But once we're married, once my name is on the accounts, I'll have options." Someone in the crowd gasped. Sophia finally reached the laptop and slammed it shut. The recording cut off mid-sentence. The silence that followed was deafening. 200 people stared at Sophia. She stood there in her white dress, holding the laptop, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her in real time. "That's not," she started. "Someone edited it. Someone's trying to—" "Sophia." Daniel's voice was very quiet, but it cut through everything else. "Is it real? No, Daniel? No, I swear. Is it real?" She looked at him, and I saw the exact moment she realized she couldn't lie her way out of this. Not with 200 witnesses. Not with his mother standing right there, her expression carved from ice. "I can explain," Sophia whispered. "Then explain." Catherine Cooper stepped forward. "Explain to my son why you just married him for his money. Explain to everyone here who gave up their Saturday to celebrate what they thought was love." Tears started running down Sophia's face, taking her makeup with them. "You don't understand. I was talking to a friend. I was venting. I didn't mean—" "Which friend?" Daniel asked. His voice was shaking now. "Who were you talking to when you said those things about me?" Sophia's mouth opened and closed. She had no answer. "It doesn't matter," Catherine said. "What matters is, you said them. You planned this. All of it." My mother pushed through the crowd. "Now wait just a minute. You can't possibly believe Sophia Honey. Tell them it's not true." But Sophia had started sobbing real sobs that shook her whole body. And then she said the words I knew were coming, the words I'd heard my whole life whenever Sophia was cornered. "Emma did this. This is Emma's fault. She's always been jealous of me, and now she's trying to ruin my life." Every head swiveled looking for me. I took a breath, pushed open the glass door, and stepped into the ballroom. The crowd parted. My burgundy dress seemed very dark among all the pastels and bright colors. My heels clicked on the hardwood floor as I walked toward the center of the room, toward my sister in her ruined wedding dress, toward the mess I'd made. Toward the truth I'd finally decided was worth telling. The walk from the glass doors to the center of the ballroom felt like miles. Every eye followed me, 200 guests watching the invisible daughter finally step into the light. My mother saw me first. Her hand flew to her mouth, and I couldn't tell if it was shock or shame or anger. Probably all three. Sophia pointed at me, her finger shaking. There she is. She planted that recording. She's trying to destroy me." I stopped a few feet away from her, close enough to see the mascara tracks on her cheeks, the desperation in her eyes. Close enough to smell her perfume, something expensive Daniel had probably bought her. "I didn't plant anything," I said calmly. "I recorded a conversation you had 3 days ago at a coffee shop in Cambridge. You were sitting across from me when you said those things." "That's illegal," Sophia shrieked. "You can't just record people without their permission." "Actually, in Massachusetts, I can. It's a one-party consent state. As long as one person in the conversation knows they're being recorded, and I did, it's perfectly legal." I'd done my research. I'd known this moment would come. Catherine Cooper was studying me with sharp, intelligent eyes. "You're Emma, the sister." "Yes, ma'am." "The one they seated in the hallway." A murmur rippled through the crowd. People were putting it together now, the sister who wasn't at any table, who hadn't been in the ceremony photos, who'd been invisible until this moment. "There was a seating chart confusion," my mother said quickly. "A mistake by the coordinator." "It wasn't a mistake." I kept my voice level, factual. "Sophia told the coordinator to seat me in the service hallway. I heard her tell a friend that I wouldn't care, that I'd probably leave early anyway." My father made a sound, small wounded. When I looked at him, he couldn't meet my eyes. "This is ridiculous," Sophia said, but her voice had lost its strength. "You're making me sound like a monster. I'm not. I love Daniel. I do. The recording is out of context." "Then provide the context," Daniel said. He hadn't moved from his position behind the gift table, hadn't come to comfort his bride. "Explain what you meant when you said you could do anything for 2 years. Sophia's mouth opened, but no words came out. "Explain what you meant about my trust fund." He continued, his voice getting harder. "About having options once your name was on the accounts." "I was scared," Sophia whispered. "I was talking to a friend about my fears, about worrying if I was good enough for you, if your mother would ever accept me." "Don't!" Catherine's voice cracked like a whip. "Don't you dare twist this into some kind of insecurity. I heard what you said. Everyone here heard it. You married my son for his money." "No, I married him because I love him." Sophia was fully crying now, the kind of crying that had always worked before, that had always made people rush to comfort her. But no one moved. "Sophia," I said quietly, and she turned to me with such hatred in her eyes that I almost stepped back. Almost. "Do you even know what year Daniel's father died?" She blinked. "What, Daniel's father? When did he die?" 2 years ago you said I said, not you." I looked at Daniel. You've mentioned your father to her, haven't you? Told her stories about him? Daniel nodded slowly. Many times. What was his name? I asked Sophia. She stared at me. The ballroom was so quiet I could hear the ice melting in someone's drink. His name, I repeated. Your father-in-law. What was his name? This is a trick question. It's not a trick. If you loved Daniel, if you'd listened to him talk about his father, you'd know his name. Sophia's face crumpled. I can't remember. I'm upset I'm not thinking clearly. Robert, Daniel said hollowly. My father's name was Robert. We talked about him on our third date. I told you how he taught me to sail, how he built the company from nothing, how he made me promise to find someone who loved me for who I was, not what I had. His voice broke. I told you all of that, and you nodded and held my hand and said you understood. And you don't even remember his name. The silence that followed was suffocating. Then my mother spoke. Emma, what you've done here is cruel. Whatever issues you have with your sister, this is not the way. Issues I have with her. Something inside me snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically, but definitively. Mom, she seated me in a hallway at her wedding, next to trash cans. And you knew. You saw the seating chart. You approved it. My mother's face flushed. That's not we thought you wouldn't mind. You're always so independent. Independent isn't the same as invisible. The words came out louder than I intended, echoing in the silent ballroom. Independent isn't the same as not mattering. Emma, my father started. No, I turned to him. You don't get to Emma me right now. Do you know what I found 3 years ago, Mom's journal? The one where she documented every single moment of Sophia's life. Every first, every achievement, every favorite meal. 28 years of entries, and I'm not in a single one. My mother gasped. You read my private journal. You left it on your vanity, and yes, I read it. I read about how Sophia was precious and perfect and needed so much love. And I read the one entry about me, the one where you said I was fine, that I didn't need you, that it was a relief. I didn't mean it like that. How did you mean it? I asked. Because from where I'm standing, you decided a long time ago that you had room for one daughter in your heart, and it wasn't me. That's not fair, my father said. We've always loved you. Have you? I looked at him directly. Name one thing about me. One thing I care about, one dream I have, one fear that keeps me up at night. Just one. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. You're a data analyst, he finally said. That's my job, not who I am. I felt tears burning behind my eyes, but refused to let them fall. I've been invisible to you my whole life. The only difference is that today you finally put it in writing on a seating chart. Emma, please. My mother reached for me. I stepped back. No, I'm done. I'm done being the easy one, the fine one, the one who doesn't need anything. I'm done watching you pour all your love into someone who... I turned to Sophia. I'm sorry. I know this is cruel. I know I'm ruining your wedding. But he deserves the truth. You don't know what I deserve? Sophia hissed. You don't know anything about me. You're right. I don't. Because you never let me know you. The real you, not the performance. I gestured at the ballroom, the wedding, all of it. This is what you do. You perform, and everyone applauds. And I'm supposed to sit in the hallway and applaud too. At least I'm not alone, Sophia shouted. At least I have people who love me. What do you have, Emma? An apartment and a job and no one waiting for you when you get home. The words were designed to wound, and they did, but not the way she thought. You're right, I said softly. I am alone, but I chose that. I chose it over pretending to be part of a family that never wanted me. And maybe that makes me sad or cold or whatever story you've all told yourselves about me. But at least I'm real. Catherine Cooper moved then, walking past Sophia without a glance, coming to stand beside me. Ms. Hayes, Emma. She held out her hand. I'd like to thank you. I shook her hand, confused. For what, For having the courage to tell the truth when no one else would. She looked at Daniel. I hired a private investigator 6 weeks ago. I had suspicions about Sophia's motives. The investigator found evidence of significant debt searches about prenuptial loopholes, even communications with a lawyer about marriage dissolution timelines. Sophia made a choked sound. I showed Daniel the evidence 2 weeks ago, Catherine continued. He didn't believe me. He thought I was being an overprotective mother who couldn't accept that my son had found love. She smiled sadly at Daniel. I'm sorry I was right. Daniel sat down heavily in the nearest chair. You knew? I suspected. But suspicion isn't the same as proof. And I couldn't give you proof without destroying our relationship. Catherine looked at me. You gave him something I couldn't, undeniable truth in her own words. I didn't do it for you, I said. I didn't even do it for Daniel, not really. Then why? Catherine asked. I looked at my sister sobbing in her ruined wedding dress. Because I spent my whole life being erased, and I was tired of watching other people get erased too. My father pushed through the crowd. Emma, we need to talk, privately. No, I stood my ground. Anything you have to say to me you can say here. He flinched. I knew. The ballroom, which had started to murmur, went silent again. What? I whispered. I knew about Sophia's plan. Not all of it, but enough. His voice was thick with shame. Daniel's father, Robert, was my college roommate. Before he died, he asked me to look out for Daniel. When Sophia started dating him, I knew something was off. She asked me questions about the family trust, about Robert's estate. Questions she shouldn't have known to ask. My mother's hand flew to her throat. Richard, you never told me, because you would have defended her, like you always do. He looked at Sophia. I'm sorry, sweetheart, but it's true. You've been manipulating people your whole life, and your mother has been making excuses for you. That's not fair, my mother protested. Isn't it? He turned to her. When she maxed out 3 credit cards in college, who paid them off? When she lost her job for chronic lateness, who made calls to get her a new one? When she borrowed $5,000 from Emma and never paid it back? Who told Emma to let it go? She's going through a hard time. I stared at my father. You knew about the $5,000. Emma asked me for advice about how to ask for it back. I told her. He closed his eyes. I told her you were the responsible one, that you could afford to help your sister, that family helps family. But she's not family, is she? The words came out before I could stop them. Not really? She's the daughter you wanted. I'm just the one you got stuck with. No, my father's voice broke. No, Emma, that's not. Then why did you seat me in the hallway? I asked. Catherine said you knew. If you knew Sophia was using Daniel, why let the wedding happen at all? Because I didn't know how to stop it without proof, without something undeniable. He took a shaky breath. I set up the seating chart, Emma. I told the coordinator to put you in the hallway. The floor seemed to tilt under my feet. I knew you'd come to the wedding. I knew you'd see what I saw, that something was wrong. And I knew you, my brilliant, observant daughter, would do something about it. His eyes filled with tears. I weaponized your invisibility. I used the fact that no one pays attention to you to create an opportunity for you to see everything. And I'm sorry. God. Emma, I'm so sorry. I couldn't breathe. You used me? Yes. You humiliated me, put me in a hallway like garbage, and you did it on purpose. Yes. He was crying now. I thought if you were hurt enough, angry enough, you'd find the evidence I couldn't. You thought you could manipulate me the same way Sophia manipulates everyone else. I stepped back from him. You're no better than she is. I know. He wiped his eyes. I know. But Daniel is Robert's son, my best friend's son. I couldn't let him marry a lie. So you sacrificed me instead. I'm sorry. I looked at my father, this man I'd spent my whole life trying to please, trying to make proud, and felt something inside me break cleanly. Not shatter. Break, like a bone that would heal stronger. I need to leave, I said. Emma, wait. My mother reached for me again. Don't. I held up my hand. Just don't. I turned to walk away, but Daniel's voice stopped me. Emma, wait. Please. I turned. He'd stood up from his chair, was walking toward me. His face was pale, his eyes red. Thank you, he said simply. I know you didn't do this for me, but thank you anyway. I nodded. Can I ask you something? Okay. That recording, when did you make it? 3 days ago, at a coffee shop. And you've been carrying it around since then, deciding whether to use it. Yes. What made you decide to go through with it? I thought about the hallway, the folding chair, the view through glass of a family that had never really seen me. Your mother's toast, I said, she said, when she talked about truth being more important than comfort. I realized that's what I'd been doing my whole life, choosing comfort over truth, staying quiet so no one would be uncomfortable, being invisible so everyone else could shine. I met his eyes. I didn't want to do that anymore. He nodded slowly. I'm sorry about the seating chart. If I'd known, you didn't plan the seating chart. Sophia did. Or my father did. Either way, it doesn't matter now. It matters to me. He glanced back at Sophia, who was being comforted by her bridesmaids, then at Catherine. I need to ask you something else. Will you be my witness? For what? The annulment. My lawyer has papers ready, but I need witnesses to sign statements about what happened here today, about the recording, about everything. I looked at Sophia. Even now, makeup ruined and dress wrinkled, she was beautiful, and she was looking at me with such pure hatred that it should have hurt. But it didn't. Yes, I said. I'll be your witness. I left the lakeside resort at 7:45 while the sky was still holding on to the last threads of daylight. Behind me, I could hear raised voices crying the chaotic sounds of a wedding imploding. I didn't look back. My car was where I'd left it, patient and waiting. I threw my clutch onto the passenger seat, kicked off my heels, and sat in the driver's seat in bare feet. Through the windshield, I could see the resort's windows glowing gold. Inside, my family was probably arguing, blaming, trying to piece together how everything had gone so wrong. Let them. I pulled out my phone and called Jessica. She answered on the first ring. Oh my God, I've been checking my phone every 5 minutes. Are you okay? What happened? I'll tell you everything, I said. But first, I need you to answer a question. Anything. That thing you asked me earlier, if I asked you to drop everything and be there for me, would you really? There was a pause. Then, Emma, I'm literally putting on my shoes right now. Where do you need me? My throat tightened. Boston, my apartment. I just need someone there when I get home. I'll beat you there. I've got a key, remember. I'll pick up Thai food and that wine you like. Jessica. Yeah. Thank you for seeing me, even when I was invisible. You've never been invisible to me, Emma. You've always been the realest person I know. I hung up and started the car. The engine hummed to life, and I pulled out of the parking lot, leaving the lakeside resort and everything it represented in my rearview mirror. The drive back to Boston was quiet. I didn't turn on the radio. I just drove, watching Vermont turn into New Hampshire, turn into Massachusetts, watching the landscape shift from rural to suburban to urban. Somewhere around Concord, my phone started buzzing. Text after text. My mother, Emma, please come back. We need to talk about this. My father, I know you're angry. You have every right to be. Please call me. Sophia, I hate you. I will never forgive you for this. And then, surprisingly, one from Daniel. My lawyer will be in touch about the witness statement. Thank you again. You saved my life tonight. I didn't respond to any of them. I just drove. Jessica was waiting in my apartment when I arrived, just like she'd promised. The smell of pad thai and spring rolls filled the small space, and she'd opened the bottle of wine, 2 glasses already poured on the coffee table. She took one look at me, standing in the doorway, still in my burgundy dress, barefoot and exhausted, and pulled me into a hug. You did it, she said. Whatever it was, you did it. I held on to her and finally let myself cry. We sat on the couch, eating Thai food straight from the containers, and I told her everything. The hallway, the recording, the USB drive, Sophia's breakdown, my father's confession, all of it. Jessica listened without interrupting, her face cycling through shock, anger, sadness, and finally pride. You know what you did tonight, she said when I finished. You chose yourself. Maybe for the first time in your life, you chose yourself. I ruined my sister's wedding. You told the truth. There's a difference. She refilled my wine glass. And honestly, that guy dodged a bullet the size of Vermont. I laughed a real laugh that surprised me with its lightness. What happens now? Jessica asked. I don't know. I looked around my apartment, small, neat, quiet. Mine. I think I need some distance from all of them. That's fair. And I think... I paused, surprised by what I was about to say. I think I need to figure out who I am when I'm not trying to be invisible. Jessica smiled. I have a feeling you're going to like her. 6 months later, the coast of Maine was exactly what I needed. I'd found a small cottage in Portland, nothing fancy but mine. The rent was manageable, and I'd started my own data consulting business working with small nonprofits and local businesses. The ocean was visible from my bedroom window. I fell asleep to the sound of waves and woke up to seagulls. It was nothing like Boston, nothing like the life I'd had before. It was better. I'd gotten 2 letters from Sophia. I hadn't opened them. They sat in a drawer in my kitchen waiting for a day when I might be ready. That day hadn't come yet. My mother called once a week. I answered about half the time. Our conversations were stilted, careful. She wanted forgiveness. I wasn't ready to give it. Maybe I never would be. My father drove up once a month. We walked on the beach, not saying much. He was trying in his way, learning to see me. It was slow, painful work for both of us. Daniel had sent me a gift basket when the annulment was finalized, expensive chocolate, and a handwritten note. Thank you for your courage. You taught me that being saved isn't weakness, it's grace. He'd asked if we could stay in touch. I'd said yes. We emailed occasionally, carefully building something that might become friendship. And then one Saturday in April, there was a knock on my door. I opened it to find Catherine Cooper standing on my porch, perfectly dressed as always, holding a folder. Ms. Hayes, Emma, I hope I'm not intruding. How did you find me? Daniel mentioned you'd moved to Portland. It's not a large town. She smiled. May I come in? I stepped aside and she entered my small cottage, looking around with interest. This suits you, she said. It's honest. Thank you, I think. She laughed. It's a compliment. She set the folder on my coffee table. I have a proposition for you. Okay. My firm, I'm a lawyer, corporate law mostly, is expanding. We're opening an office in Portland and we need someone to head up our data analytics division. Someone who understands the value of truth, who has integrity, who isn't afraid to make hard choices. I stared at her. You're offering me a job. I'm offering you a career. The salary would be significantly more than what you're making now, and you'd have autonomy over your division. But more importantly, you'd be working with people who see you. Why? I asked. Why would you do this? Because 6 months ago you saved my son's life. And because I've spent 30 years in corporate law watching talented people get overlooked because they don't perform loudly enough. You're brilliant, Emma. I looked into your work. Your former employer was an idiot to let you go. I quit. Even worse on their part. She pushed the folder toward me. Think about it. There's no pressure, but I hope you'll consider it. After she left, I opened the folder. The salary number made my eyes water. The benefits were incredible. The job description was everything I'd ever wanted professionally, but never thought I deserved. I called Jessica. Take it, she said immediately. Obviously take it. But what if what? What if you succeed? What if people finally see how amazing you are? What if you get everything you deserve? She laughed. Emma, you spent your whole life being invisible. Let yourself be seen. I took the job. 1 year after the wedding that never was, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. Emma, I don't know if you'll read this. I don't know if you've read my letters. But I'm going to try anyway. I've been in therapy for 8 months now. Court mandated at first after Daniel's annulment case, but I kept going even after I didn't have to. I'm learning things about myself that are hard to face. My therapist says I have a personality disorder, that I learned to manipulate people because it was the only way I knew how to feel safe. That Mom and Dad enabling me didn't help me, it hurt me. That I never learned who I actually was because I was too busy performing. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve that. I'm writing to say I'm sorry. For the hallway. For the things I said. For every time I took up all the space and left none for you. I'm also writing to say thank you. You could have let me marry Daniel. You could have stayed quiet like you always did. But you didn't. And because you didn't, I'm getting help. I'm learning to be a real person. I don't know if we'll ever be sisters. Real sisters, not just people who share DNA. But I hope someday we can at least be honest with each other. I'm sorry, Emma, for all of it. Sophia, I read the email 3 times. Then I saved it and went for a walk on the beach. The April air was cold, but the sun was bright. Seagulls wheeled overhead. The ocean stretched out forever, indifferent and beautiful. I thought about the woman I used to be, the one who sat in hallways and stayed quiet and made herself invisible so everyone else could shine. I thought about the woman I was becoming, the one who had a career she loved. A friend who saw her a small life that was entirely her own. And I thought about Sophia finally facing the truth of who she was. Maybe there was hope for us, maybe not. But for the first time in my life, I realized I didn't need to know the answer. I was enough all on my own. When I got home, I opened my laptop and typed a response. Sophia, I read your email. I'm glad you're getting help. I'm not ready to forgive you yet. I might never be. But I appreciate you taking responsibility. I hope therapy helps you find out who you really are. Not the performance, but the person underneath. Maybe in a few years we can try again. Start fresh. See if there's anything real between us. But not today. Take care of yourself. Emma, I hit send and closed my laptop. Then I made myself dinner, opened a bottle of wine, and sat on my porch watching the sun set over the ocean. My phone buzzed. A text from Daniel, working on a community center design in Portland. Could use a data consultant for the project planning. Interested, I smiled and typed back. Send me the details. Another buzz. Jessica Girls Weekend next month. I'm thinking spa wine and absolutely no discussion of toxic families. Perfect, I sent back. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and purple. The ocean turned dark and mysterious. Somewhere in the distance, a lighthouse began its rotation, sending out beams of light into the darkness. I sat in my chair, wrapped in a blanket, and thought about the woman who'd sat in a hallway a year ago watching her family through glass. She'd been invisible then, but she'd been seeing everything, and that had made all the difference. Epilogue. 2 years later, I was promoted to partner at Catherine's firm. Jessica wrote an article about my work that went viral, The Invisible Analyst, How One Woman's Courage Changed Corporate Ethics. My father and I had dinner once a month now. We were building something new, slowly. It wasn't the relationship I'd wanted as a child, but it was honest. My mother and I spoke occasionally. She'd started her own therapy, trying to understand how she'd failed me. I appreciated the effort, even if the wound was too deep to fully heal. And Sophia, we met for coffee once in a neutral cafe halfway between Portland and where she was living in Connecticut. It was awkward and painful and real. We weren't sisters. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But we were honest, and sometimes that was enough. I still thought about that wedding sometimes. About the hallway and the folding chair and the moment I decided to be seen. People asked me if I regretted it, if I wished I'd handled it differently. The answer was always no. Because that night, sitting in a hallway next to trash cans, I'd learned the most important lesson of my life. Silence isn't the same as peace. Invisibility isn't the same as safety. And sometimes the loudest thing you can do is tell the truth, especially when no one wants to hear it. End of Part 3, 3,000 words. Total story, approximately 10,000 words, across 3 parts. The end.